Hello, Mr. Billy Bilo here with a short video on how to increase your damage in the Elder Scrolls Online. Specifically how to increase your situational damage in endgame content and in trials. I hope the video helps. This all started for me when I was streaming on Twitch the other day and I had a fair few people in my stream and I was talking to one of the people about how I increased my damage and I started showing him the logs. To my surprise, lots of people in the stream hadn't heard of the logs. They didn't know about them, or some that had thought they were very intimidating and hadn't spent the time going through them. So I thought I'd create a short video to show people just how useful they can be and also how easy it is to extract the information. As a player coming from World of Warcraft, I assumed that most people would be using them, but it seems that's not the case. So hopefully this video will help. Okay, for those who don't know, the ESO Logs is a website to which players can record the statistics that they create through a fight and upload them onto the website. Some people do it to show off their damage, to just show how much can be done and try and get the best passes or the best damage on certain bosses. I think others do it just to help the community and show them what they're using to try and help other people improve. When we come to the game, we quite often go to these guides. So here we've got the Alcast guide for Magicka Warden, which is the class I play. These guides are fantastic and I'm not knocking them, and I certainly use this a lot, which helped me improve through being a beginner, but they are limited. Okay, as we see here, Alcast recommends 3 gear sets. He's got an end game gear set to aspire to. We've got a mid-range set here, which has got lots of craftable gear, which is good gear for the mid-range player, and we've got a beginner set. Down here we've got the spells he recommends, front and back bar, but as we can see there's only really one recommendation with a slight variation here. Dots Gaming was one of the other fabulous websites which I used when I was learning, the Shaman. Okay, here we just have the 2 gear setups, beginners and a main gear setup. Down at the spells, which are a little bit different, which can be confusing as a beginner player. We do see a little bit in terms of alternative skills, but on the whole not much. As MMO players who like to play endgame content, we know that it's very unlikely that this one setup of spells is going to help us all the time, and there are going to be situations when it doesn't work. So what we do is we go to ESO Logs. It's really simple to find. You just type ESO Logs into Google, click on the website, okay, and up it comes. Okay, if we go here to the top left hand corner, I should say there is a lot of information on here and it can be used to extract a huge amount of information of what goes on in fights, but we're going to keep it super simple today. If we go to these 3 lines here, and we're going to start really simple, we're going to start on the Iron Ancient and we're just going to hit rankings. Okay, I play a Magicka Warden, so that filter it down to your class, okay, and then you'll get a list of all the people in your class that have logged for this particular fight. So we're looking at the Iron Ancient and Magicka Wardens, and we can see in order of who's done the most damage these players. What's really important is here is we've got the list of spells that these guys are using, okay, and the percentage usage that spell has, from the ones that are extremely important and used by everyone every time, down to the ones here which are substituted in and out depending on situation, preference, etc. Okay, we can also go into each player and we can look at the gear sets that they've used when they've recorded that pass, as well as the spells they've used on their front and back bars. So we can start to get some really great information on how these guys are achieving these numbers. What's really interesting is we start to see the difference here between these players and the guides, and I'll give you a really good example of that. So if we look at the Alcast guide, which again I must say is a great guide for beginners, we have Bird of Prey. Okay, this gives us a speed increase and it also gives us a minor berserk buff. Now these buffs are useless to us during an Iron Ancient pass. The movement speed obviously is no help at all, and the 8% minor berserk is actually already given to us by the Iron Ancient. Okay, and if we go to the logs, we see that actually the kind of spell buff that's being used by everyone is Inner Light. Okay. Inner Light here, and if we look down here we can see that it's on every player's front bar in fact, and it's on most players' back bar. So we realise this is a really important spell for us to have on our bars. We don't see it in these guides. Okay, so that's a great example of how in certain situations the guides are actually holding us back rather than helping us, and where the logs can really help us find out what these top players are doing. Same thing goes for gear sets. If we look at the top damage doer here, they're actually using Sororia's gear set here. Sororia's is a really great gear set for certain situations because it gives you a huge spell buff, but you have to pretty much stand still to keep it up. It creates a ring of fire around you. Once you leave it, you drop all your stacks of this spell power buff. Perfect for the Iron Atronach. You're not going to find it in a generic guide because most situations you're not going to be able to stand that still, and it's actually going to be a bit of a waste to have that gear set on, so you're not going to put it in a guide for beginners who are doing lots of different content. So another example there really of where the logs are really important in terms of showing us different ways of doing things. Okay, so looking at some of the other content, we've got all the raid bosses here, so you can go down fight by fight and start looking at what the top players are using in certain fights, what spells are situational to that fight. That's the really important thing here, is the situational damage. So if we look at Sunspire, okay, if you click on the icon, you get all the different bosses. You must select a certain boss if you want to get the information. Okay, and then if we go to rankings for Sunspire, okay, again, I'm going to filter this down, Warden, Magicka, and here we can see the top damage doers that have logged for Sunspire, and particularly in Vintas in this situation. Because it's a trial boss, there is a little bit more difference. There's a bit more of a difference in terms of the spells that are swapped in and swapped out, because certain players will attempt different things. Some spells use stamina, so you might choose to use that instead of a buff that uses Magicka to try and increase your Magicka. So there are different ways people can swap things in and out. As you can see, Bird of Prey is sometimes used here, and in fact some people use it in combination with Inner Light. So you need to start looking at what works for me. What buffs have I got? What buffs do my healers give me in this raid? You'll certainly start to see some differences in gear sets, and some of the gear sets that you like the look of that weren't in the guides, and you thought, oh, maybe I shouldn't use that. You find that they're actually in here. You find damage doers breaking their monster sets to try and get buffs in different ways. So you spend some really good time in here finding what works for you and what you think you should be doing. And there are certainly things that themes that you see that you need to put into your spec that aren't in those guides. If you are looking at specifically increasing your pass, I would also recommend going to watch some passes on YouTube. I won't spend too long on this, but essentially these passes give you a great idea of the more specific things that each player is doing. They'll usually just record the pass. They're pretty boring to watch, I must admit. I've never watched one all the way through. I don't know why you would. But what you do find at the end here is that they'll give you all the key stats. They'll bring up their damage meter and they'll give you all the key stats from their pass. Okay, which spells that they're casting, how many casts of those spells they're getting off, up times for certain buffs. You will scroll up and down this and you can see what up times he's had, and you can also get the information on what gear sets they're using, what enchants, etc., which really helps us setting our character up for this path. So as you can see, what gear set, how he's used his champion points, his enchantments, everything like that. Okay, so I do recommend you spend a little bit of time looking at passes and looking at the outputs of passes to help you as well. Okay, so we've learned that we might need to change our gear quite a lot for different situations, which can be quite frustrating as a player. You might think, well, I don't want to have to change my gear every time I go into a different instance. How am I going to remember all this? Do I have to keep my bags full of all this stuff? Well, what I would suggest that if you are starting to look at different gear sets for different situations, it's really important that you get this add-on, Dressing Room. It's a really great add-on. You'll find it in Minion, or you can download it from the add-ons website. Dressing Room is essentially exactly what it says. It gives you a chance to save different gear sets for different situations, and you can simply equip them with the touch of a button. So as you can see here, I've got a PvP set up, and with my spells for that and my gear set, this is what I use for the Maelstrom Arena. Okay, there's a specific set for Sunspire, a specific set for AoE, and all you need to do when you're in game to change these sets is I've got it bound to F6, and as you can see, the gear set and the spells will change. Okay, just with a touch of a button. So that gives you that opportunity to use those different sets of spells without feeling like you have to go into your bars every time. Okay, I really hope this has helped. I've kept it super simple. There's lots of other things you can do to increase your damage, but I think when you get to that past that beginner stage and onto the medium stage, these are things that will really make a massive difference. If my videos helped, please pop in and see me on my Twitch stream. You can find me at Mr. Billy Bilo, streaming 4 nights a week. Please hit like, please hit subscribe if you've enjoyed the video. If it goes down well, I'll certainly be creating more content. Thanks very much, and I hope to see you in game.